Well, it is finally time. I am finally getting around to doing a Q&A session. This is today my second full year on YouTube, and it's really just unreal what has happened in the last 2 years. In today's video, I'm going to be going through and answering some of your questions that you had for me about what I do, my YouTube channel, my business, some personal questions as well. So although this isn't the typical video, hopefully you enjoy this, and I'd love to hear your feedback on some of the things we talk about. So when I started my YouTube channel, it was mostly to share with you guys what I do on a daily basis. It wasn't meant to teach people how to do anything. I had so many people asking what I was doing that I thought, well, I might as well just take video of it and post it, and you can kind of follow along with me as I learn and as I grow in my business. And if you learn something along the way, that's cool, but that wasn't my main focus. I will never forget hitting my first 1,000 views, getting my first 1,000 subscribers. It's surreal in a way that in such a short time I've come to the point where I am less than 10,000 away from 200,000 subscribers. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you guys. Some of you have been with me from the beginning, and some are just finding me now, and that's amazing. I literally wouldn't be able to do this as a job if it weren't for you guys, so huge thank you to everyone that likes my videos and shares my content, leaves comments, and joins in on the live chats when I do premieres. Even things like buying me teas and coffees through the Buy Me a Coffee app, or sending me little gifts from Amazon. Like, it never gets old, and every time I get a package in the mail, or every time I get an alert that someone has sent me a tea, thank you, by the way. It just blows me away every time. So huge, heartfelt, sincere thank you from me to you. So a couple of months ago, when I knew that this anniversary was coming up, I posed a question on my community page where I wanted to know if you guys had any questions for me. And it could be personally questions about me, about my business, about my pets, whatever. I initially thought about doing this live, but as you can tell, even though I'm getting better with time, I'm still super awkward. I have a very hard time holding eye contact in real life, let alone a camera. So if my eyes seem shifty, I'm not a shifty person. It's just something that I've always struggled with. But yeah, I'm not quite there yet for a live, but I may do it at some point. Anyway, so questions. You guys came back with some amazing ones. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to get to all of them, but what I'm trying to focus on are ones that I have seen throughout the last 2 years as recurrent questions. And I guess probably the best one to start with is how in the world I even got into this in the first place. So back in 2013, Andrea and I had bought our first house together, and it was a real fixer-upper, and I don't mean that lightly. I'm going to show you some footage of what we bought, and neither of us are afraid of a challenge, clearly. This was fairly early on in our relationship. I think we'd been together for about 6 months when we decided to do this, so if this renovation isn't a testament to how well matched a pair is, I don't know what is. But point is, we had done all this work to make this place beautiful, but we were coming from a situation where I was moving out of an apartment. I had very minimal furniture. She had very minimal furniture, and we just spent a ton of money renovating this place. And we shopped around. We went to all of, the typical furniture stores like the Brick and Leon's around here in Canada. I don't know if Leon's is in the States, but anyways, we saw a lot of things that we liked and fit our aesthetic, but I'm not paying $8,000 for a couch. And I'm not paying $500 for one end table. I'm just not doing it. So I decided to go on Facebook Marketplace, see what I could find. And I did find a mate to the little nightstand that Andrea had coming from her last place. And it wasn't wood, it was probably, I think it was like MDF or something, but I painted them and gave us a nice matching set for a while. But after a bit, we kind of wanted to get into some nicer quality furniture. So I started buying stuff, and I noticed that you could get pretty good quality pieces in, somewhat questionable condition for a good price on Facebook Marketplace back at that point. There's been a bit of a boom, and now it's hard to find anything under $300. But I also started going to thrift stores, and there was an auction house. I got really into auctions, and I started flipping furniture to sell on the side. And my very first sale was this little table, a little coffee coffee table. Looking back now, it's kind of funny because I would never do it the same way, but you know, the person who bought it loved it. And it was a rush for me. It was a thrill to take something that I got fairly cheap, recreate it, and make a little bit of money on the side. Now, I had a full-time job at that time. I was a tattoo artist with my own shop, super busy. Initially, this furniture thing was just something I did evenings and weekends, and it was at the point where I was starting to not enjoy my job as much anymore, my tattoo job. I love the art, I love my clients. Some of my clients have become amazing friends, like amazing friends, and I will always have tattooing to thank for that. In fact, that's how Andrea and I started talking a while back. I gave her a tattoo. We had met previously, but it wasn't until I tattooed her that we kind of started to hang out. There's a stress that comes along with putting something permanently on someone's body. And I didn't really have many negative experiences. There were, I think, 2 or 3 over a 10-year span. And at this point, it's been about 13 years since I started tattooing. But I don't know, the older I get, the more conscious I am of my stress levels. And I just find that tattooing for me has become such a stressor and almost a fear. I get an incredible anxiety when I have to do a tattoo now, and it's so silly because once I'm doing the tattoo, usually I'm fine, but it's just the build up to it and the lead up to it, something that I've come to really detest, I guess, over time. And plus, I was starting to have a lot more fun with furniture. I got to be creative as well, problem solving, but I didn't have the stress of it, and it's why I never really got into commission pieces. I get asked literally every day. In fact, I have a copy and paste email that I send back to people that inquire about it because my workspace is small, and now that I have my YouTube channel, there's no time or space for custom work. And to be honest, I don't want the stress of it. I don't want it to become like tattooing where I'm trying to fit inside of a box of someone's expectations. And I don't know. I think I've outgrown tattooing. It's always something I could go back to later on if I wanted to, but I feel for me right now, this is more where I belong. So that's enough about that. I'm just going to go through here and have a read through some of the questions. Someone says, can't think of any questions that weren't already asked, so congratulations, girl. You're an inspiration to many of us. Love your videos, love your work, love your ink, art, and bunnies. I would love to know if you sell your art sketches. And that was by NannyCakes56. So thank you so much for that question. It is something that I've been trying to get done. I bought a scanner a while back. In one of my videos, I had done 3 watercolor paintings, and I said, yes, I'm going to be selling prints of those things, but I just haven't gotten to it, but I will. The short answer, I guess, is no, but I will be soon. Even things like t-shirts and hoodies, there is a link, or there was a link, I can't remember if I removed it. I signed up for one of those print fulfillment centers. So basically you go online, you look at the design, if you like a t-shirt, you click on it, you pick your color, your size, and they ship it right to you. I had linked to it for a while on my channel, but I had ordered a couple of samples and I wasn't thrilled with the quality. Initially they were great, but I found that it just didn't have the wear that I want for something that I'm going to be selling. And I know it's silly, it's just a t-shirt or hoodie, but those things matter to me. So what I'm actually going to be doing on that front is having stuff done locally with a company that I've used before for the bunny rescue, and I'll actually be shipping them directly to you. Now, because I'm doing it this way, I have to buy everything up front, so there won't be as many colors and choices available, but it's kind of cool because you'll know that it'll be coming from me. I plan to put a little handwritten note in all of them to say thank you, and so that'll be something else that's coming up in the year. Someone wrote, Susan Baker 8023 says, happy anniversary. This was in regards to my 2-year anniversary with YouTube. How did you get involved with Bunny Rescue? I love your work and kind ways. Thank you. I got involved with the Bunny Rescue kind of by accident. We had reached out to them when we were looking at adopting a rabbit a while back. And our first bunny, her name was Peanut, and she didn't come from the rescue. And being on this side of it now, I kind of wish that we had been more patient and waited for a bunny. I think at the time the rescue didn't have any rabbits that would be suitable for us, so that's why we got one from a 4-H kid that was selling babies. And I don't want to say there's anything wrong with that, but working with the rescue for the last several years, you kind of see a lot and learn a lot, and now I would pretty much always go with a rescue for most animals. Like even little Nacho, he came from a cat rescue. A little while later, we ended up getting a second bunny, and we talked a bit more, and then I decided I wanted to do a fundraiser for them, a tattoo fundraiser, and I was working at a different shop. This was before I had my own shop. Everybody in the shop said, yeah, we'll all do it. So we had this cool very first tattoo fundraiser for the bunnies ever. I think it was at that point that I kind of became more friends with the rescue ladies and got more involved. We continued to do the fundraiser every year. Then even when I left that shop and branched off to my own shop, I kept going with it. So every year since then, except for 2020, for obvious reasons, I've done a tattoo fundraiser for the bunnies. So that is honestly one of the hardest things about considering leaving tattooing. Yeah, it's just that I wouldn't be able to do the fundraiser for the bunnies anymore. And I know I do my furniture flips for the bunnies every now and then, but the tattoo fundraisers bring in a lot of money for them, and it's one of their most important fundraisers of the year. So it's been hard for me to kind of let go of that. Having a scroll here. There are a lot of folks who commented that they didn't have questions, but they wanted to chime in and say thank you and talk about kind of how they've, since watching my channel and other channels like it, have gotten into furniture. I love seeing that stuff. This is oh gosh, see if I can remember. I don't know if I can pronounce this. Henriette. Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. I don't think I can pronounce your username. But it starts off with Henriette something 397. They wrote, approximately how long does it take for pieces to sell? Are you always able to sell everything? Love your channel. That's an awesome question. So far, yes, I've been able to sell everything. Of the hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands at this point, of pieces of furniture that I've done, a very small handful, maybe 4 or 5, I've had to repaint or lower my price enough to sell. I do usually a very specific style. That style sells well. I tend to stay in that mid-century, either restored or wood grain plus paint combinations, and they sell really, really well for me here. I did a lot more farmhouse stuff in the beginning that is still going strong here, but I just don't do as much of that personally. As far as how long it takes for pieces to sell, when I had my shop, now meaning tattoo shop, there was a big section in the front of the store that was empty, and when I started doing furniture, I started to slowly fill that with just random furniture. It was the weirdest shop, but anyway. Eventually that evolved into an actual vintage shop, and that's when Transcend Furniture Gallery was born. I know some people think that's kind of a strange name for a YouTube channel, but that was literally the name of my store, so I just kept it the same. When I had my store, what I would do is I would refinish all the pieces at home, but I didn't have a staging wall, so I would bring everything to the shop, take pictures of it on the staging wall, post it on Instagram that night usually, and then I would open the next day. It was so competitive for a while that literally the second I would post something, I'd have messages coming in. So it's not uncommon that certain pieces would sell within the first 30 seconds. If it took a couple of hours, that was strange at that point, but even then, almost everything sold within a day. I think what helped pieces sell so quickly also and create more interest was that I was doing sneak peeks. So about 2 hours to an hour before I wanted the listing to go live, where it would be offered for sale, I would take a little sneak peek shot of a corner of something or some interesting part of it, and I would basically explain what the piece is, what the measurements were, so that people could measure ahead of time, because that's always a pain in the butt when you're trying to sell stuff. You have to wait for people to go measure, so doing that ahead of time really helped. And in the sneak peek post, I would also say what time the listing was going to go live. So at that time, I would have it ready, I would have it saved as a draft. At that time, I would just take it out of my drafts folder, post it, and then it's kind of first come, first serve. I'm going to have a tea break. Pardon me. This is a London Fog, by the way. It's my favorite Tim Hortons drink. I'm not a Tim Hortons fan, really, aside from their bagels and their London Fog. Let's see, what else do we have here? This one it's kind of an origin question, but a little more specific. Steph H and Z wrote, what a ride, congrats. I'd love to know how you started. What was the piece that got you hooked on restoration? So I've already kind of answered how I started, but as far as the piece that got me hooked on the restoration side of things versus just refinishing or painting, I had already started doing restorations before this particular piece came along, but I was at that point honestly painting more than I was anything else. And if you've seen my channel and watched a lot of my videos, you probably already know which one it is because I had a lot of regrets about this piece. I didn't know much about real quality mid-century furniture when this piece came along, and I did opt to paint part of it, and I sold it, immediately regretted it. There was something about this piece, I just absolutely loved it, and I never really got over selling it. So I told the person I sold it to, if you ever want to sell this, please let me know. I will buy it back in a heartbeat. And about 4 years later, she contacted me, offered to sell it back. They were changing up their decor, and I think I paid $50 less than what I initially sold it for. And I took it back and restored it. And it's not that there was anything wrong. It looked beautiful with the white paint on it, but I think I just learned, I'm not sure how to word this. I'm not against paint at all. Clearly, I paint all the time. Not all the time. I paint a lot of the time, and I give 0 Fs what other people do with their own furniture, even if it's something that I wouldn't paint. It's none of my business, and I really wish people would get off this hate train of ragging on people that paint furniture. If it's not yours, if it's never been yours and will never be yours, it's none of your business. And I don't mean to sound harsh when I say that. It's just some of the comments I see on people's pages, just people ripping them to shreds about a piece of furniture they'll never own. I will never understand it. There was a point to this. What was it? Oh no. But I think that as you go on in this business, you're going to hone your skills. You're going to learn what pieces make you happy. And for me, mid-century, even though I hated it my whole life, it's so bizarre, became that thing for me, that thing that I just love. So even though I will still paint mid-century pieces, certain ones, I'm a lot more selective about what I paint and where I paint, and I will restore something if I can. I would say that that particular piece and the regret I had around it was definitely the pivot point for when I kind of moved away from paint a little bit and more into restoration. And the thing about painting versus not painting something, it's entirely subjective. I also have a Facebook page, and let me tell you, the comments there are a lot worse than they are on YouTube. And you've seen some of the bad YouTube ones. But Facebook it's a different breed altogether, and it doesn't matter what I do. There's been pieces that I've restored. Do you remember that one that was covered in that crazy, like rag rolled purple and pink paint? It was a mid-century chest of drawers. I think it was 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 drawers high, and I stripped all the paint off and restored the walnut wood grain underneath. I had so many people complain on Facebook that I took something and made it boring. It's like, okay, well, this is what it was meant to look like. And I totally respect that opinion. I mean, not everybody wants a brown box, and that's why a lot of these pieces get painted in the first place. But my point is that whether I took a brown box and painted it or took a painted one and made it back into a brown box, someone's gonna complain. So just do your thing, let other people do their thing, and if it doesn't concern you, mind your business. I had a few people that were curious about my tattoos, and considering the flack I get for some of my tattoos, actually, speaking of Facebook, terrible Facebook comments and tattoos, I'm going to share one with you that I got not long ago, and oh boy. So anyone who mentioned my tattoos and, have a genuine interest in it, I just want to say thank you. Tattoos aren't for everyone, for sure. I don't care if someone has or doesn't have tattoos, and I have tattoos because I love them. So I started getting tattoos when I was 24 years old. I am 43 now. People will often ask how many tattoos I have, and I'm not really sure because, is this one tattoo? I don't know. It was done in different segments, but I mean, technically, I guess it's one tattoo. Yeah, I guess I should probably do something related to furniture now. I should get one of those Baco scrapers. I don't think there's any room. Maybe I could do it up here and add it on. But yeah, I need to add furniture to the list of art pieces for sure. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Okay, this is a good question. This is by Disco Ball. They wrote, how might someone determine if this work is right for them? I'd be interested to hear some of the pros and cons with your experience flipping furniture so far. Do you have a favorite part? Something you never tire of? What about something you never look forward to? Long-time viewer, first-time commenter? Thank you. Keep up the great content, and I'm so happy to have found your channel, and I love the work you do. This is an awesome question, and I do get asked this quite a bit in the wild. So if I'm out and about and someone finds out that I do this, this is a question they commonly ask me. I have a couple of videos where I talk a little bit more about the business side of things. And about a year ago, roughly, I started a second channel called, oh my God, what is the name of my second channel? I think it's called The Business of Flipping Furniture. The reason I'm having trouble remembering is because I haven't posted there in a long time. And when I started that, I didn't expect this channel to go crazy like it did. And I got really busy and I just haven't been able to add to it. But I will be rejoining that channel soon. There are some videos there that you might find interesting. Pros and cons. I don't know. There's a lot more pros than cons for sure. Some of the pros are you're taking stuff that is often about to be discarded, or in some cases has been discarded. You know, so keeping things out of landfills, that's always been a really important part of what I do, and a big motivator for why I do it. It's helping older pieces that maybe would normally be thrown out because they don't fit in with someone's decor, rather than, you know, just get rid of it all. You know, you can redo it and make it fit in with your current decor. I find it very therapeutic. It's very relaxing for me, even when things are frustrating and going wrong. Overall, it's still usually a very positive experience. There's something very rewarding about working with your hands, and depending on what sort of style of furniture and method of refinishing that you do, there is money to be made for sure. There's a lot of money to be made in custom work. And again, like I said, I don't personally do it. It's not for me. I don't want the stress of it, but for the people who can deal with that stress, and for some people it doesn't stress them out at all, those people can make a lot of money, because there's a lot of people out there looking for ways to refresh their stuff. They don't necessarily want to do it themselves. They would rather pay somebody, but there's a lot of money to be made there. Cons, things have gotten more expensive as this sort of vintage craze has progressed over the last 5 or 10 years. A piece that I used to be able to pick up for $50 is now going to cost me $150 or $200 if I'm lucky. So that's definitely been difficult. And because of that, a lot of the refinished prices have gone up as well. So I've had to raise my prices slightly over time. And some people have really raised their prices. Mine have stayed fairly consistent, and that's probably a hindrance to me. But yeah, prices across the board have gone up, even with supplies. So that's another con. Another possible con, I guess it depends on how broad your shoulders are, so to speak, and that is that not everyone's going to agree with what you do. And it goes back to what I was saying a few minutes ago about how whether I completely restore something back to a factory finish or give it a more modern update, someone's going to be pissed off. It is what it is. So as long as you're able to deal with that, I guess it doesn't have to be a con, but that is something to take into consideration. Some people are very sensitive, especially newbies that are just starting out and, you know, they've done their first few pieces and they're super proud of them. And then some total stranger on the other side of the world comments on their page and rips them a new one and completely crushes them. And while I do get a lot of negative comments about my tattoos and personal appearance, they don't bother me. So they don't hurt me. They don't offend me at all. I think they're ridiculous, and they make me sad more than anything. Sad that total strangers go out of their way. They take time, literal time, out of their precious, precious life to cut somebody down. I'll never understand that. But yeah, they don't hurt my feelings, and most of the time I just laugh. So keep that in mind, haters. My favorite part is obviously keeping pieces of furniture out of landfills that really just need a little bit of work and some time, and something I never look forward to. I'm so tired of furniture that smells like cigarettes. I don't care if people smoke, it's their own prerogative, but it's so hard to get the smell out of furniture, and it's very difficult to sell pieces that smell like cigarette smoke. And I always get people that get angry at me when I talk about this, saying that I'm hating on cigarette smokers. Like I said, I don't care if people smoke, it's just people don't want to buy furniture that smells like smoke. So I never look forward to stinky pieces. Musty pieces as well, that can be hard to get rid of, and lead paint is a pain in the arse to get rid of also. So those are kind of two things, smelly pieces and lead paint. Those are the ones I do not look forward to. Jamie O'Mahan, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, 2656, wrote, "Did you have a mentor in your furniture restoration adventure? If not, how did you learn all your tips and tricks? And really importantly, which wood is which? Congrats on your 2-year anniversary." Yes. So when I first started out, I reached out to YouTube and watched as many videos as I could. There were people I for sure watched more than others in the beginning, and actually I did a video on that a while back to kind of say thank you to those people. There were many more than those, I think, think 5 or 6 that I picked for that video, but my main ones initially were Jamie Ray Vintage, Tom Johnson. If you're into restoration, you probably heard that name. Katie Scott, who is a fellow Canadian, and actually I'm super fangirling about the fact that she only lives a couple hours away now. If you guys want to see some sort of collab, make sure you comment below. Let's see if we can make that happen. That Shabby Guy, he does some amazing painted pieces. Yeah, I will link that video below if you want to check that out, and as well as some of the others. What's nice about that video in the comment section is that I asked people to tell me what channels they learned from. So my video itself plus the comment section is a great resource for finding cool people to follow on YouTube. As far as learning how to differentiate one wood from another, that is mostly trial and error. Research and practice. I was not great at it in the beginning, and that mid-century credenza I was talking about earlier, my regret piece, I didn't realize that was teak when I painted it. I don't even remember if I had an inkling about what type of wood it is, or maybe mistook it for another wood. I don't even think that crossed my mind. I just thought, hey, this piece would look really nice white, and that's kind of the difference between someone just starting out and someone who has done what they could to learn about what they're working on. If I got a piece that I was unsure of, I would try to make as many notes about it as possible, like the colors and the tones and the structure of the figure in the wood. And then I would go on Google and I would type in those parameters and see what would come up. Most of the time, there would eventually be a match. Then it would stick in my head. I'm like, okay, that piece is walnut, or oak has these specific markings. Like it's just something you learn over time. And I did a video about wood ID, and I tried to take everything that I sort of know about wood in general, like how it grows and how it's cut, put it into a video, and then I talked about some of the most common woods in furniture with some pictures. And there's no video or book you can really read and immediately be able to recognize it. And furniture refinishers are at a little bit of a disadvantage because we don't often get to see the wood in its natural form. We see it under paint or layers and layers of, colored varnish or colored lacquers. So sometimes it is hard to identify them, and it's really just practice, constantly cross-reference, and you'll figure it out. There's a question here from, I'm not sure how to pronounce this one either, Elag or ELAG 912. They wrote, congrats, I love how your channel grew in just 2 years. That's super impressive, but with the quality of your content, it has to be expected. You're sweet. Question, how to start selling? I have no idea where I should go or post my pieces to get any attention, let alone money. That's a really good question too, and that is really going to vary depending on where you live and what the market's like where you live. Before I opened my little storefront, all of my pieces sold on either Kijiji, which is kind of the Canadian equivalent of Craigslist, and Facebook Marketplace. And of those two, probably 3/4 of it was Facebook and 1/4 of it was Kijiji. So I would start there. I would start with small pieces just to kind of get comfortable with interacting with people online. And I have to tell you, Facebook Marketplace has become a cesspool for scammers, and it's getting to the point where it's scary and it's hard to trust people. Because I am well known around here, people recognize my name in Facebook Marketplace, they recognize my work. I can get away with posting an ad and saying that there are no holds without e-transfer payment. This is scary for a lot of people, and it is completely understandable. Like I said, every third reply to pretty much anything you're selling is a scammer just trying to get your information. On the flip side, when I go to buy something, I will often e-transfer ahead of time to secure the sale, and that is becoming more and more of a risk as well. I still do it if it's a piece I'm really interested in, because there's been times people will say, yes, I will sell something to you, and you get there and they're like, oh, well, someone wrote me 2 hours ago and they could come right away, and they didn't bother to tell me. So paying ahead of time can save that, but you're also running the risk of someone ghosting you, and that happened to me once for sure. I'm trying to think if there was a second time or if that worked out. I know it happened once for sure. It was only $20, but I don't want to say a learning experience because I knew that was a possibility of happening. But anyway, that was a bit of a tangent and I apologize. I tend to do that. So as far as how you should start selling, I would start with Facebook Marketplace. Have a look through if you're selling, let's say, a little wooden painted end table. Go to Facebook Marketplace, type in wooden painted end table and see what comes up. See what people are selling, what styles, how much they're asking for them. If you're planning to ask $200 for this table, but every other one on Facebook Marketplace is, 40 bucks. I don't want to say you won't sell it, because you very well may, but it may be a slower product in your area, if that makes sense. Most of my dressers, hey, let's talk about mid-century specifically. If it's a mid-century 6 or 9 drawer dresser, they typically go anywhere from 500 up to, I think the most I've ever charged is about 1,000 for a dresser. But there are people now charging even more than that on Facebook Marketplace, and they're still selling. So if you want to try to get $200 for your little table, try it. And if you get it, then you'll realize that there's something wrong with the way other people are marketing, or maybe they're just not charging enough. So sometimes you can push it a little bit. I don't want to say keep your expectations low, but don't put all your eggs in one basket, I guess. Try a couple little pieces at a time. Some other things you could try are local auctions. Generally, that's not going to bring you as much money as a direct sale like Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji or Craigslist. Depending on where you are, there may be vintage shops that offer space for people to come in and sell their work. I know in the States, there's a lot of these big antique malls, and I so wish we had something like that around here. I keep joking that if I win the lottery, that's what I'm going to do with my money. I'm going to create one. But sometimes you can rent a booth space, and I wouldn't recommend doing that until you're very established and you have a constant flow of work. Instagram is also great. Instagram has changed a bit. I still sell quite a bit on Instagram, but it's because I already have a following. It's hard to sell on Instagram when you don't have a big following, I find, because of the way the algorithm has changed so much over time and it's preferenced for reels versus photos. I wouldn't discourage someone from having an Instagram page and sharing the work, but most of your income is probably going to come from places like Facebook Marketplace. Just be very careful of people that write saying they want to buy something but they can't pick it up and they're going to send someone else to get it, and can they send you a check? Or there are a lot of scams, so just be careful. One thing I will say, if you're just starting out and you're not really sure about pricing in your area and what the threshold is, don't get in the habit of listing something for the price you want and it not selling and then lowering the price, because people will catch on to that really quickly, especially if you have a Facebook or Instagram page, and they know that typically if you list something and it doesn't sell right away, in a couple of days you're going to lower the price and then they will snag it. If you want to list your table for 200, list it for 200, but try to stick with that as long as you can. If it's something you need to sell quicker, rather than try for a high price and then lower it, just start at a lower price, if that makes sense. I hope that helps answer your question a little bit. This question is from Lisa Bryant, 1604, and she wrote, "Not a furniture flipper, but I love watching your content. I find your videos so relaxing as well as educational. I was curious about your editing setup. What program and mic, etc. do you use?" That's an awesome question, and I recently upgraded my studio area and some of my equipment. So initially I was working in our basement in the same room as the bunnies, and as much as I love hanging out with the bunnies for hours and hours on end, it was wreaking havoc on my allergies because I am really allergic to hay, and it's the cruelest gift. But it is, yeah, I'm very allergic to hay, so it was really affecting me. And a lot of my videos, I would start off talking normally, and by the end, I'd be hoarse and scratchy, and it was just no good. So recently, we painted the 2 bedrooms upstairs, the 2 spare bedrooms. One is still a spare bedroom, and I took the other one for my new little office area, and that is where I am here. It's not as quiet as the basement, and I'm hoping that you can't hear my neighbor. He's had some sort of mulcher machine going all day, the one day that I had to film this. And there's a big window right in front of me, so there's not a lot of sound blocking from the outside like there was in the basement, but figured out for normal voiceovers how to deal with that. So I will show you some footage from my room. I bought a used desk from StrucTube. It's walnut veneer, even though it's not, a solid wood desk. I actually prefer veneer over solid wood. It's true, but it's got a lot of surface area and it's perfect for what I need. I have a lot of room for my keyboard and mouse. I can stretch out, I'm not cramped. For recording, I have 2 Sony cameras. I have a Sony A6100 and a Sony A6500, and I have 2 prime lenses that I use on those cameras. And the prime lens is what gives you that almost cinematic look. So here you can see I'm in focus. My lighting's a little harsh, but that's okay. But you can see the background is blurry, and that's what I love in some of my close-up shots in my videos. It has just a more cinematic look. When I did my first few videos, I was using my iPhone, and I was filming with my phone, and that was great. Most cell phones, like modern ones, can film in 4K. So the downside is there's not a lot of differentiating from the foreground and the background, and it all comes down to focal length. And lenses like this, has a different focal length, so you have the bokeh effect in the background, and this is very in focus. I had a very old MacBook Pro, like 10 years old, when I first started my first videos 2 years ago. It became obvious very quickly that that wasn't going to cut it, so I upgraded to an iMac, one of the 24-inch ones, and that was amazing too for about a year and a half, and even then I outgrew that. So I ended up selling that one and switching to the new Mac Studio, and I would have got the Mac Studio instead of the iMac if that was an option at the time, but it wasn't. It hadn't come out yet. The Mac Studio is a workhorse for people like me who do a lot of video editing or heavy programming. My microphone that I'm using the most is a blue Yeti X blackout edition. I have a shock mount, which is then connected to a Rode boom, and I love this boom because I can move it in any direction and it just stays put. I have 3 Western Digital hard drives that I use to store all of my footage. Right now, I am still using iMovie mainly to edit. I do have Final Cut Pro, and I started to use it a little bit with some of the shorts that I'm doing on my other channel, TFG Snacks, but I'm not very good at it yet, so I haven't done any major editing with it yet. So I'm still in the process of learning. I just haven't had a lot of time to devote to that. I'm fortunate enough to make money from my YouTube channel that I can pay for these things. But when I started, like I said, I was using a 10-year-old MacBook Pro and an iPhone to film. It did just fine. So it comes down to really what you want your videos to look like, whether you want them to have a cinematic quality or more of an educational aspect to it. I like mine to be kind of cinematic, and it's the same reason I use music. And I get asked a lot about my music. The problem is I use so many different songs that I don't know the names of them all. So often people will say, what is the name of this song? I don't know. I don't remember. But I get all of my music from Epidemic Sound or premiumbeat.com. They're both paid music services. I don't think you can just download one song. You have to buy a subscription. There's another question here by Julie Rittenhouse 5460. I thoroughly enjoy your videos. Your work is always top notch, and I love seeing the transformations. Also enjoy seeing Nacho grow and seeing the bunny cameos. It amazes me how you can identify all the different types of wood. How do you do that? How did you learn to distinguish one species from another? Again, that's kind of there's a few people that asked about wood. So yeah, I would check out my video that I have about wood species, and really it's just like what I talked about earlier, where it's just practice, trial and error, and research, a ton of research. Kind of in relation to the camera gear and stuff like that, someone, Hyper Piper 2022 wrote, "Congratulations, I have been lucky enough to see all the videos from the start. Thank you. Question, what prompted you to start a channel? You are so good at camera placement and voiceover and editing. Self-taught? Love from Ottawa." Yes, I am entirely self-taught. Everything I know, I have learned from online videos like YouTube, blogs, and trial and error. Trial and error has been a big one. As far as camera placement and the filmography of what I'm doing, that is a learn as you go. If you look back at my very first video, that was 2 years ago today, and the way I film it, there are some similarities, but you can see a huge difference in what the scene or the picture looks like because I was filming with my phone, which doesn't have this nice focal length that my new cameras do. That is the difference between a shot like this and a shot like this. Voiceover, my first voiceovers, I was sitting on the floor in my closet surrounded by my clothes to try to dampen, the sound. Eventually I graduated from the closet to the basement, and now I'm in the spare room. I'm not a sound technician, so someone who is and really hears those things would probably listen to some of my videos and think, oh my goodness, there's a lot that could be tweaked, and there is, and I hope to keep improving over time. I built a sort of foam enclosure for the microphone, so when I'm doing a normal video where I don't have to talk to the camera and have the microphone below me, I have this thing set up on my desk, and the microphone just pulls down right in the middle of it, and it just encloses it, and you get a much better sound than what you're probably hearing today. Sarah Joyce 5041 wrote, how do you figure out pricing? I'm getting into the start of doing this type of business and I find I might be scared setting a price. I don't want to rip myself off, but also do not want to overprice. Yeah. I'm the worst person to ask about pricing because I consistently don't charge enough. I don't really know why, to be honest. Initially when I was starting out, I had my prices low because I didn't have much storage. So if something didn't sell right away, I wouldn't be able to do the next piece because I wouldn't have room to do it. Does that make sense? If you have like a shed or a part of your garage or even a storage room, which I do have now, it's hard to charge sometimes what you feel your piece is worth because if it doesn't sell right away, you're stuck looking at it until it sells. So kind of common advice, and I mentioned it a little bit earlier, is to look and see what's going on in your area. Diana Pedersen, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, 9065. She wrote, you're such an inspiration with both furniture rehabbing and animals. When you were growing up, did you envision your life as it is today? Good question. Second question, would you rather direct your rehabbing for selling and filming along the way, or turn more toward teaching and giving classes on how to rehab with selling as a byproduct? I'm actually going to answer the second part first because that has partially, I guess, become what my business is. So when I had my little storefront and I was truly flipping furniture, I was putting out at least 3, sometimes maybe 4 pieces a week, depending on what it was. But keep in mind, back then I was also doing more painting, so that tends to go a little bit faster than full restorations. When 2020 came around and everything got shut down and I decided to close down my storefront in favor of going completely online for selling because so much was selling online anyway, it was then that I really started to think about having a YouTube channel. Now, if you have been on my About Me page on YouTube, you may have noticed that it actually says 2018 as the start date for this channel. And 2018 was when I really first started thinking about doing this channel. It took me 3 years before I was brave enough, I guess, to post my first one because it's hard putting yourself out there. My point is that once I did finally start my YouTube channel, everything kind of shifted in my business. I went from being able to put out 3 or 4 pieces a week to maybe doing 1 piece a week because it takes 2 or 3 times as long to do a piece when you have to film it. You're constantly moving the camera, and I'm so envious of the people that have spouses and other people that can film for them or edit for them because it really helps. But I'm doing all of this by myself, so it takes me longer to do 1 video than someone to help would. And it's not that Andrea wouldn't help, it's just she has a full-time job. So because it takes me so long now to do a piece, I'm not selling as much. My poor storage room, which I've had since before I closed down my shop, is still full. I'm glad that I had kind of almost hoarded furniture prior to 2020 because when everything shut down, I still had a resource for furniture, whereas other people couldn't. They couldn't go to thrift stores and they couldn't do Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji sales. So I was quite fortunate in that sense, but now I'm paying for it because I have all this furniture that I had intended to go through quickly that I'm now going through slowly, and I'm paying a lot in storage fees, so I need to get that sorted. Long story short, because most of my business is now related to YouTube, I don't sell as much. So yeah, I guess you could say that selling is now sort of a byproduct of my YouTube channel. I'm able to donate more because I do get revenue from the videos. Prior to YouTube, I couldn't donate as much as I wanted to because I had bills to pay and furniture was literally my income. As far as teaching and giving classes, that's not really my genre or where I want to be with this. I started this channel and it continues today that this is more a how I do channel than a how-to channel. I do try to throw in some tips and tricks here and there, but what works for me might not work for you. And even though I get a lot, I'm talking like on a daily average between YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and email, probably close to 20 on an average day and up to maybe even 30 or 40 on a busy day. Questions from people about their furniture and can I help them? And as much as I would love to, I hesitate to because there's so much that can get lost in translation, and especially when dealing with vintage and antique furniture. I don't want to be responsible if I give you advice on how to do something something, but the finish isn't exactly what you said it was and things don't go well, or you can't get the products that I'm recommending, so you get a different product and it doesn't go well. I don't really want that stress. So that is the main reason I don't always give advice. If it's something simple and very generic, more than happy to, but as far as detailed, will you help me refinish this dresser that belonged to my great grandmother? It's not really where I want to be. So instead, kind of the best I can do is put out as many of these videos as I can, showing you how I tackle certain problems, and hopefully you're able to pull from those videos and figure out how to make those things work for you, if that makes sense. Hopefully I'm getting that point across properly. As far as the first part of that question, where she asked when I was growing up, did I envision my life as it is today? Oh, that's a hard one. I went through many career aspirations as a kid, but the one that was very consistent all the way through was some form of art. And I guess in a way I am living that. I've done many different jobs. I was a geophysical tech for a while in an oil and gas company. I worked as a private investigator in Alberta. And then I was in security after the PI job at a casino in Alberta. I moved back to Nova Scotia and I became a realtor. And then I became a tattoo artist. And all throughout all of those other jobs, I was painting and doing art on the side. So art has been the one sort of constant throughout, and I guess in a sense I am still doing that. Phoebe and Fiona asks or says, all of the pieces you restore have such great style. Do you just follow current trends, or do you have an affinity for good taste when you give something new life? Thanks for all the great videos. I am not generally a trend follower. So if you're on YouTube a lot, especially in the furniture community, you can absolutely see trends come and go. I will dabble sometimes. If there's a trend that I think is interesting, I might do a piece or two, but for the most part, my main goal is creating classic looking pieces that will outlive trends. And there's nothing wrong with redoing a piece in a trendy way if it's for yourself or even to sell, because, you know, some trends do last a long time. Farmhouse, for example. I keep hearing on all these, you know, super huge YouTube channels about home design, everyone's saying farmhouse is out, farmhouse is out. Let me tell you, I was in a real like normal furniture store this past week and almost everything was distressed farmhouse style. It's still huge here. So I think it really depends where you live, and that's why I kind of stay away from that this is in, this is out mentality, because that may not be the case for everyone. For me, as long as something looks good, is in good repair, and could blend in with multiple decor styles, that is what I aspire to, or what I aim for. I know this is long, but I don't often get to answer all of your questions in real good detail, so this is why I wanted to do this video. Okay, this is a good one. Max Boone, I'm hoping I'm saying that right, writes, wow, you should be so proud of yourself for how much growth your channel has gotten in only 2 years. I am super proud and super grateful, so thank you for that. My question is about odors. What makes you decide if you should or shouldn't use an odor blocker? I feel like every old piece of furniture has a smell to it, like the old finish smells. Makes me feel like I need to sand and seal every little nook and cranny, including the interior. No one else seems to be doing this. Smells are something that I sometimes get a lot of hate for. I mentioned earlier about cigarette odors and musty smells. I have some people that send me the most angry messages, and it's so stupid. They send me the most angry messages because they don't feel like, because to them, an older piece having a musty smell is just part of it being older. I completely disagree. I respect your opinion, but I completely disagree. I've seen 200- and 300-year-old pieces that have no smell because they were taken care of in a proper environment. When something has an odor, it's not just that it's old. Sometimes that is related to mold. Sometimes it's related to mice. Mice poop and pee does not smell very good. Cigarette smoke, cat urine is really difficult to get out. Basically, if And I should start by saying that my nose is terrible. I've had allergies my entire life, so my sense of smell isn't the best. But if I can smell it, then I have to assume everyone can smell it, and I do not like selling a piece that has any odor at all. On the rare occasion that I can only get something so far, I make sure that the new owners are aware that there is some sort of odor and that I've done all I can to remedy that. And for most people, that might be okay, but I do everything I can to get smells out. Sunshine is great for certain odors, using things like vinegar, baking soda, charcoal. I've heard so many different sort of home remedies for getting smells out of things, and what might work on one piece that smells musty might not work on another musty piece. So you kind of have to have a plethora of resources available for dealing with odors. If I've cleaned everything properly and have completed my restoration or refinishing or whatever I'm opting to do, and I can still smell it, that's when I will use an odor blocking primer. If cleaning itself is not enough, I will use a blocking primer. There's a question by Sonia. I'm having a hard time today with usernames. Sonia Gillett or Gillette. I'm not sure how to say your last name, I'm sorry. She wrote, "Congrats, I love your work and look forward to new videos each time. I'd love something on when to seal timber before staining. Is it based on the wood or the stain type, etc.? There are certain woods that are notoriously difficult to stain. Pine is one of them, which is a very, very soft wood. Maple, on the other hand, is a very, very hard wood and is also extremely hard to stain. Birch is another one that tends to be blotchy. Basically, if you're using a penetrating stain on any of those woods or another type that you know can be difficult to stain, I would use a wood conditioner. And technically, you could use a wood conditioner on any piece of wood before staining, but especially pine, maple, and birch, because of just the way the wood is. It's very prone to absorbing the stain differently in different areas, and a wood conditioner will help even that out a little bit, or in some cases quite a bit. I don't use a lot of penetrating stains anymore. I prefer gel stains, and this is one of those things that, depending who you talk to, some people will be like, "Oh, gel stains are crap, you should always go with a penetrating stain or a dye stain." I've had really good luck with gel stains. I mostly use general finishes, and then I use certain water-based stains or dye stains as well. That's my experience, and this goes back to one of the early questions about giving people advice and having it not go properly. All of these things that I'm telling you, these are my experiences with it, so yeah, just take that for what it is. So I guess to literally answer your question, it's kind of based on both the wood and the stain type, because certain woods don't absorb stain evenly and certain stains tend to be worse on those woods, if that makes sense. Fidget's House says, "Congratulations, I'm so excited about your planned video. My question, if you could only have one power tool in your shop, which one would it be and why?" When I first started, I didn't have many power tools, but now that I have been collecting and building a workshop for the last 5 or 6 years, I have many that I love and use daily. But if I could only have one, it would 100% be a power sander. Things like orbital sanders and, palm sanders, there are people that never use them, and that's totally fine. I don't work on very rare or expensive antiques. I work on Depression era pieces and sort of mass-produced mid-century furniture. I'm not having to do museum quality or expert restorations on old furniture. So in those situations, I would never use a power sander on those, but that is not what my business is personally. If you look at someone like Tom Johnson, who does a lot of antique furniture restoration in Gorham, Maine. If you've seen his videos, you'll get that. I rarely see him use a sander, and it is because of the specific type of work on the specific type of furniture that he's doing. For me, a power sander is extremely important when I'm working on department store quality laminate mid-century dressers that might have some wood, but the rest is laminate. Hand sanding all of that smooth to paint it would be a nightmare, and trying to get that plastic laminate, which is usually like a sort of paper or foil with resins to give that faux wood grain, trying to get that off without a power sander is very difficult. So yeah, that would be my answer. It would be a power sander of some sort, whether it was my Surf Prep or good old Mr. DeWalt. Deborah Kathleen 1 says, love every nuance of your channel and videos. My question is, at what point in flipping and or YouTubing were you able to meet your home budgets, sustain your bills, etc., become profitable? Thank you. That's a really good question, and this is going to be different for everyone. For me, it was all about timing. My life changed drastically in 2020 when everything in the province shut down. Tattoo shops were not allowed to be open, so I had to close my tattoo shop, and furniture became my sole income for those few months that everything was closed. In the middle of all that, Andrea and I decided to sell our house and close all three businesses. So I had my tattoo shop, my furniture shop, and she had her little rock and gem shop, all in the same unit. I had a very big unit. And we closed all three of them and tried to find a house, a property where it was zoned for business and would suit all of our needs. And we found the place we're in. It has a legal business on one side with its own parking lot, its own entrance, its own bathroom, and I have my tattoo studio in there, fully permitted, by the way. This isn't one of those work from home in the back room kind of jobs. She has her rock at the front of that, and on the other side of the house is my garage where I have my workroom. Because I was literally forced to stop tattooing for a while and move just to furniture. I had to figure out ways to try to make more money with it, and I had been toying around with a YouTube channel, as you know. As I mentioned, I technically started the channel in 2018. I just didn't post until 2021. And I had a very rare rise in YouTube. It is extremely rare for channels to get monetized as quickly as I did, and to get to that 100,000 subscriber point as quickly as I did. In fact, I read a statistic a while back, and it might not be spot on with my memory, but it was something like 1% or less than 1% of YouTubers make it to that point. So I don't know if it was just the combination of how I do my videos with where people were in the world, trying to get through what everyone was trying to get through at that time and find ways to make more money, that furniture channels sort of became more popular. But I rose up in the ranks of YouTube very quickly, and it was only a few months later that I was able to start upgrading some of my equipment, and within 6 months, was making a pretty good living. The thing with YouTube specifically is that you can have an amazing month and then do everything the same the next month and it's a terrible month. It's kind of a fickle creature, YouTube is, with the algorithm. And that's why when I'm struggling to get a video out on time, that's why it's so stressful for me. It's not that I necessarily have to do it for you guys, although I want to. It's that if I take too long to upload it, my channel kind of crashes for a little bit, and that impacts my income. So that's why it's so important for me to stay regular with my postings. On the furniture side of things, because YouTube slowed me down with how much furniture I could put out, my flipping kind of slowed a lot, actually. Not kind of, it really slowed a lot. I didn't have the time to constantly be driving to pick pieces up and deliver them like I used to. So there was a point where furniture and YouTube kind of did a switch, and I was making more from YouTube than furniture flipping. I think it really depends on what your budgets are and your bills that you have to pay. I was making a very good side income from furniture flipping prior to YouTube. Here in Nova Scotia, like in our last house, we had a fairly low mortgage, fairly low utility bills. I could have gotten by without tattooing and just furniture, but it would have been tight. So it really depends on your situation. But I also put myself in a box because I don't do commission work. Commission work is definitely where the money is with furniture flipping. I hope that helps answer your question a bit. Well, folks, that's it for this video. I really want to thank you for sticking with me. Hopefully this hasn't been too long and drawn out. I tend to ramble sometimes, which is why I didn't want to do this live. You should see how many ums I had to edit out. But I do think these Q&As are important, and they're fun to do at certain milestones. So until the next one, which will probably be, let's say, 500,000 subscribers if I ever reach that point. Who knows? It is a lot for a furniture channel, but you never know. Some of you have been following along since my very first video. I know who you are. I see you. Thank you for coming to my awkward TED Talk, and I will see you in the next normal video. Take care.